Otenba to Yancha yokoso. Welcome to Otenba Yancha, an online event on inclusivity and the Netherlands-Japan cultural cooperation. My name is Jan van den Berg and I will be your host for today. Originated from the Dutch word ontembaar and the diminutive name Jantje, Otenba and Yancha means untamable naughty girl and boy in Japanese. This interesting evolution in language epitomizes the century-long exchange between the Netherlands and Japan. Nowadays, the fun spirit of Otenba and Yancha, which could be interpreted as keeping a heart of a child and thinking out of the box, is continuing and reflected in Dutch-Japanese collaborations, especially in the cultural and creative fields. At this hybrid event, we, Otenbas and Yanchas, gather and focus on the theme of inclusivity, one prominent topic in the cultural exchange between the Netherlands and Japan. We will guide you, our audience, to review the broad spectrum, tenacity and sustainability in Dutch-Japanese cultural creative collaboration in relation to the social subject of diversity and inclusion. We have guests here in the studio and calling in from Japan, and I'm happy to welcome them all. Theo Peters, Anoma van der Veere, Tomoko Mukayama, Hiroko Tsuboi Friedman, Sachi Miyachi, Esther Vossen, and Vincent Schipper. Everyone is related to the interdisciplinary cultural program NL-Kanto, which is a Dutch initiative in Japan on the occasion of the Tokyo 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games, organized by the Dutch Embassy in Tokyo and Dutch Culture, the network and knowledge organization for international cultural cooperation. This program focuses on the themes of inclusivity and beyond the capital and demonstrates the interaction and sparks between Dutch and Japanese creative minds through various cultural and art projects. Now, without further ado, I would like to firstly give the word to Theo Peters, Deputy Head of Mission and the Head of Public Diplomacy, Politics, Cultural Department of the Dutch Embassy in Tokyo. Welcome, Theo. Theo Peters, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jan, or maybe I should say Jantje, I'm not sure anymore. Well, anyway, thank you, Jan. And hello to everyone, or friends of NL-Kanto. Welcome online. We're very happy to see you here. This is Theo Peters from the embassy here in Tokyo. And I'm very happy that we have this event together. Because together we're going to share and showcase some of the inspiring and thought-provoking projects in the Dutch-Japanese cultural context that we've been working on for these years. These projects, they are about connecting, they're about sharing, about inclusivity, as you say, but also about thinking out of the box. They are about who we are as Dutch and about our values. And as you all know, creativity and exchange are untamable forces. When Corona forced us to do things differently about a year and a half ago, very often into the online and into the virtual realm, that's when we went looking for alternative spaces and platforms to continue the exchange. And we decided to use part of our funds to support experiments and exploring these alternative spaces and finding new ways to continue the exchange. And we soon discovered that already many artists in Japan and in the Netherlands were already doing exactly that. And today, you will have the opportunity to see some of the fruits of that. The NL-Kanto program was initiated as a cultural program on the occasion of the Olympic and Paralympic Games. The biggest characteristic is that we use these programs to bring ongoing projects to a higher level, projects that we've been working on and nurturing over the years. So these exchanges are based on many years of cooperation. And we found that these projects, such as Game Changer, Sabatini Market and Vrijhaven, turned out to be resilient to the Corona crisis. A second feature is that we harness the power of creativity to make changes in society. The combination of creative power with an eye on society. That is a driving force behind Game Changer, behind Culture All Nippon, and all the projects of the Fukuroda House. We do not do one-off events. We go for the long-term, sustainable collaboration. And the speakers of today and the projects and their works are a testimony of this mission statement. And I'm sure that today's broadcast will be an inspiration for you, the viewer, to see what the possibilities are of this Japan-Netherlands exchange. In conclusion, allow me to say thank you to Dutch culture for their enduring effort in realizing this NL-Kanto and this online event. Next up is a short video clip introducing the NL House project. Let's have a look together.
Hello everyone, this is Amy from NL House. I'm speaking to you here from the first floor living room. What do you think about when you think about Japan? Is it sumo, sushi, kimono, or Buddhist temples? Well, today I'm going to show you how we've decorated NL House in the same way. Come with me to see how we imagine the Netherlands. Here we have canal houses that we imagine stand by the canals of Amsterdam. Tulip, with its variety of colors and a cute shape, is a favorite flower of Japanese children. We even have a children's song for it. When you show a picture or a photo of windmill to a Japanese person, immediately he or she will think that it's...
Thank you, Theo, for your talk and clip. And for now, I would like to invite Anoma van der Veere, researcher of Modern Asia at the Leiden Asia Center, Japan correspondent for Dutch news broadcaster NOS, and currently a Max scholar based at Osaka University, Japan. Anoma, are you there?
Hi, yes I am.
Hi.
Yes I am.
Thank you, good to see you. You were part of the research group for the sport project Game Changer between the Netherlands and Japan, which is about local policy making in disability sports in Tokyo. Now this Game Changer project actually inspired NL-Kanto program at the first place with the same spirit on inclusion. Could you talk a little bit and tell us about this Game Changer project, how it did pan out up towards the Olympics and after, maybe?
Yes. First of all, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk also about the Game Changer project, which is a project that is very dear to my heart. The project itself is about more than just disability sports. So it's about inclusion, it's about diversity, and getting there through access to disability sports. It's actually a very high-level project. So we have the NOC-NSF, the Dutch Olympic Committee, involved. We have the Japan Sports Council involved. There's 3 municipalities in Tokyo, but as you know, Tokyo is very big. So each of these municipalities is, 2-3 times the size of a Dutch city. So a lot of people involved. And of course, the Dutch embassy, very graciously. And it was led by Rita van Driels, who is up until this year, was a member of the International Paralympic Committee and very prolific in disability sports in the Netherlands as well. However, at the same time, this project was very grassroots. And this is why I really enjoyed doing research, being part of the research in this project, because it combined 2 levels that I think are very important. Policy, but also community. So normally when we look at projects like these, the word policy is just thrown around, especially when we look at the Olympics and Paralympics. A lot of these projects end up just being showboating and not very effective. While this project is actually a very good example of policy in action. Instead of just focusing on creating big and grandiose ideas, it actually involved people with disabilities, and it involved people's communities. So it wasn't just government, it was institutions, coaches, neighborhood volunteers, sports leaders, doctors, carers, parents, et cetera, et cetera. And it resulted in long-term policy and, more importantly, local stakeholder networks, which I think is one of the most important things you can build. But of course, COVID has made things a little more difficult. Yeah.
Before we go to COVID, could you please tell me a little bit more about this statement you made in the article that you wrote about this project, and where you use the term, it takes two to tango, which I think in relation to the inclusivity is a beautiful way to summarize what this project is about, how to make people with an impairment get involved, and also, let's say, a two-road way, a two-road conversation and collaboration.
If you mean that it takes two to tango, these are actually not necessarily my words. I believe these were Rita's words. But yes, so it takes two to tango. It means basically that you have different people that need to be involved. It isn't just one person saying, hey, this is the plan, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to throw money at it. This just doesn't work. Why? Especially with people with disabilities. You need to be able to actually involve the people that you want to help, that you want to access, right? You want to have people with disabilities involved in your project. And the only way to do that is by inviting them,
right,
to going up to them and asking them, so what do you think of this policy? Do you think this could be improved? And especially with people with disabilities, there's this assumption that they're very infantilized, right? They're infantilized. We often treat them like children. They're not. They're people. They have ideas, they have experiences, and especially their experiences can be very informative for our policies. Right? So how do we create access without talking to the people that are actually, supposed to get the access?
Right.
I think that is one of the most important things. So if you talk about two to tango, it definitely takes two to tango.
Right. It's learning in a two-way road, as a two-way road in a way. Right. Now, you already mentioned the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. You were also one of the NOS reporters for the Olympic and Paralympics Games. Could you share some insights about the impact on the Games and on Japanese society, especially in the context of COVID-19?
Yes, so this is very broad, of course. Regretfully, I didn't have that much access. I had limited access to the Paralympics. I was there throughout the entire Olympics, but regretfully, I wasn't there. I was only the first part of the Paralympics. I wish I could have been there for the whole thing. And nevertheless, the thing I did see is that, especially with the Paralympics, visibility helped a lot. The visibility of people with disabilities, for example, on television, on the radio, and just continuously, inviting athletes to talk about their sports. This was very helpful in getting the Japanese population acquainted with disabilities, right? Because when we think of disabilities, it's not one big group. There's so many different ones. There's so many different varieties, right? It could be anything from having no pinky to being neurodivergent. It can be anything. So it's very helpful for us and for the Japanese populations to see this, right? That they don't have this very limited view of what disability is. I can't really say much about a positive impact of the Olympics. I have to be honest there, because there's a reason that Prime Minister Suga had to leave his office, as it was not very popular games. It was supposed to be the recovery games. In the end, it didn't really do much for Fukushima. So it was supposed to be the recovery of Fukushima, and that ended up not really happening. In the context of COVID, it was completely unpredictable. So what we saw, especially during COVID, of course, is that vulnerable minorities became more vulnerable. And the Olympics did not help in creating more protection for these peoples, for these minorities. However, what I did notice was after the Olympics that people that I spoke to, and I spoke to a lot of people who are both involved in the Olympics, but just also people who just watched it on TV, that in the end, most were relatively happy about that they actually took place. Well, we had these spikes during the Olympics, but following the games, everything kind of calmed down. And this did help with creating a better post-Olympic image of the games themselves. So in the end, I do think personally that the Paralympics had a very big effect, hopefully a very positive effect. I'm a little less positive about the Olympics, but overall, I do hope that we see some good results in the end, some good effects.
Thank you. One very short question, and please, I invite you to give a short answer about this theme of inclusivity. Do you have any suggestions on how Dutch creativity could continue to relate and contribute to inclusivity also in Japanese society?
Yes, as a very simple answer, involve the communities in which projects take place. This is the most important thing you can do, is you can actually talk to people and adjust your programs accordingly. When people give feedback, you need to listen. You need to change your approach if this is necessary. And this is one of the things that I see happen sometimes in Japan as well with some art programs like the Nippon Foundation's Diversity in Arts program. But even here in Osaka Prefecture, we have these art projects going on, and they give feedback. So community is my answer.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anoma, for enlightening us about your experiences and the social context in Japan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will continue and dive now into the cultural program of NL-Kanto. It was inevitably disturbed by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, each project under the NL-Kanto umbrella came up with its own solution to recalibrate, in order to still reach the audience and react on the ever-changing new situations of the coronavirus. Although there are many more projects under the umbrella of NL-Kanto, because of the time limit of this program, today we will zoom into 3 projects for discussion. Now, firstly, let's watch a short clip about the first project that we will talk about, being the Super Tea Market.
年なのかって、そんな年じゃないな。でも
So now I welcome Tomoko Mukayama and Hiroko Tsuboi-Friedman. Welcome, both zooming in from Japan. Tomoko, as an established pianist based in the Netherlands, you have been expanding your artistic practice towards many other media, for example, visual arts, fashion, and documentary. We want to talk with you about this Super Tea Market project, which you set up in Amsterdam since several years. And this time, as an important project of NL-Kanto, you brought the concept back to Japan. Could you introduce briefly about Super Tea Market and how it is related to the theme of inclusivity and diversity in both countries?
Yes, Super Tea Market has started 2013, and I'm sure you remember on 2011-12, in Netherlands, we had a big budget cut on culture. And this was a sort of the comments on this. Before that time, I was always inviting younger people to come to Netherlands because we had all sort of a possibility. But many small venues disappeared. And since I'm invited to have a piano concert, and I thought I should make this space broader for more people, especially younger artists. So this was around the piano concert in a lounge, and also during the pause, we had invited younger artists to show their work. That was the beginning of Sabatini Market. actually that spirit continued. And this time in Tokyo, we had 4 or 5 Dutch artists shown their work. Well, actually, of course, the original idea was that they would all come and to have a chance to meet and have interaction with Japanese audience. But that was not possible because of the COVID.
Okay, and how about this local communities, getting involved, the local communities in Japan into the project? Of course, you could not work live, but how did you manage to adapt to the situation in terms of getting the local regions adapted and involved? Could you tell a little bit about that?
Well, yes, we actually did in live with a small audience this time, but to have this, we had already cancelled and postponed, let's say, twice in the past. And second, the which we saw was actually the second postponing. We decided to go to online. That's why everything was visualized. But actually, the time in November, we had in Spiral Hall, which is in middle of Tokyo, we had a small audience and had interactive event 2 days. And this not only having artists and having a chance to have dialogue between public and artists, we had also hosted actually 7 workshops and roundtable discussion with Culture of Nippon. That's the new organization which I'm busy with Hiroko, and actually agency of culture affairs organized workshop as well. So we had, well, as I said, 7 workshop and roundtable, and each this event has discussed about culture in Japan, subsidy system in Japan. Also with high school students, they discussed about culture in the future, and so on and so on. So it was quite dense, rich 2 days.
Okay, that's good to hear, and that's also a good moment to welcome you, Hiroko. Thank you for joining this event. You are the expert on, together with UNESCO, on the diversity of cultural expressions. As Tomoko already mentioned, you also participated in Dutch culture programs before on the subject of fair practice in cultural field. As a co-founder of this Culture All Nippon, what do you aim to achieve in Japan with this new platform? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, good afternoon and good evening, and thank you very much for having us today, for this exciting event. Yes, the aim of the Culture All Nippon and linked to the Super Tea market, as Tomoko mentioned, it's about inclusivity. It is about setting up a platform for fair dialogues and fair discussion on any topics around culture and arts. And now, I'm talking as an expert of the 2005 Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions of UNESCO. And according to the QPR, of course, the reports submitted by the ratifying members in the states, for the Netherlands, what really drew my attention is about this inclusivity, the spirit of it, such as culture in an open space in society. And the culture is by and for everyone. Excuse me for the cat. So sorry. But it really is about inclusivity and participation, of everyone, which seems to be lacking, like in Japan at the moment. Where there are lots of attempts, to create platforms that and space, for fair discussions, and yet somehow, that type of attempt is not exactly working. And especially during the COVID, with Tomoko and other experts, and artists, the filmmakers, and the playwrights, we put up an online discussion, which was actually triggered by the UNESCO, called Resilient Art, 2000, last year, in 2020, early in the spring. To promote and maximize the voice of artists and creators, creators, people in the cultural domains, and through these discussions, we realized that it is important to really have a platform to voice our opinions more freely. So the Culture of Nippon can, and also the Super T Market was all about this inclusion and talking out and just talk, just talk about this in much more open public space and domains,
So my next question for both of you would be what kind of new insights or experience did you get from these discussions? So next to organizing the platform and having people around the table, could you give some examples of what it brought you?
The big impression I had is that in Japan, everything is very organized. All the, not all, but a lot of discussion has a scenario, and you have to follow this. But because we had so many events during these 2 days, we didn't prepare enough. So everybody was improvising. And Japanese is not very known for good with improvisation, but it was not true. Everybody had, at that moment, discussed many things very spontaneous way. And also the audience was reacting very natural way and very strongly. So it was nice to see we can do this too. And so we could hear also very the word from the heart, let's say. It's not prepared beautiful sentences.
Right. Thank you. How's this for you, Hiroko? Do you recognize what Tomoko says?
Yes, exactly so. I would say, that, just having this open discussion, in a very relaxed atmosphere, and where improvisation is actually demanded almost. It's very refreshing actually, because you can really hear any very real voices at any point by anyone in the space. It doesn't matter who's on the stage or not on the stage. And that actually reminded me, of this one report, which I worked with the special rapporteur, special rapporteur, for the cultural field, the cultural rights field, of the special rapporteur, in the field of cultural rights, for the United Nations, which was about, about the cultural rights, basically, especially with cultural mixing, syncretism, and mixed cultural identities, where diversity is actually the reality, and it has to be respected, and everyone has voices, coming back to what Anoma actually said earlier, so in a sense, just having that one space, as an experiment, was fabulous. And I think we can try to continue that spirit and also effort. Thanks.
And how about the other way around? What could the Dutch, did you experience something that the Dutch participants could learn from, let's say, the typical Japanese style of dealing with inclusivity or diversity?
Yes, the November event was not online, it was in live. So that's why we couldn't have many Dutch audiences. But because we have introduced a Dutch artist in Tokyo, so I'd like to mention one artist, No Jansma, and she actually sells a cloud, literally. She captures the shape of a cloud, make a photo, and give a price, and people can buy it. But it's very sharp comments on the ownership, and such the language for art expression, which is very unknown in Japan. So they started buying, but not knowing what it was. And then, of course, after that explanation, so they were deeply impressed. So such a exchange between Netherlands and Japan was very fruitful during the Sabatini Market.
Great, great, thank you. Good to hear that. My last question would be, especially for you, Hiroko, from the point of view of the Dutch cultural sector, how can we work together with this Culture All Nippon platform or network, especially on themes like inclusiveness and fair and diverse culture?
Well, thank you for the question. I think, as I repeatedly said, having the opportunity and space for fair discussion and fair dialogue is very important, and the transparency, of course. And for that, Japan always look for for good models into the Netherlands, especially with policy making. For a long time, it's been quite a tradition. And for Japan, as Tomoko said, the formality is quite a strong customs in the sense that that there's always the framework, and then people try to build in or around it, but in this case, I think this notion or the concept or the philosophy of having a fair, transparent dialogues or the discussion type of things, can be very much stimulated and learn. That Japanese style can learn from the Dutch ways, and also vice versa too. Because of the diversity, we all work together and learn from each other too. So and for the fair international corporations, culture exchange corporations, it is crucial to have the respect and desire and passion of interest in the others and otherness so in that sense I think there's always this the dialogue not the multiple dialogue the opportunities going on especially between two countries and different various parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you both of you, and I hope you will stay with us for the last part of the program and join the Q&A at the end. But for now, thank you very much for your insights and sharing your experiences. Next to me at the table, here live in the studio, are Esther Vossen and Sachi Miyachi. Welcome to you both. And I would like to talk with the two of you, especially about this artist-in-residency program, the 5th season, a collaboration with the Fukuroda Mental Hospital in Ibaraki Prefecture, Japan. But first, let me properly introduce you. First, Esther, if I may, Sachi. Thank you. You are art curator.
Right. Yeah.
You are a consultant, and you have a lot of experience in the Netherlands with collaboration projects between artists and the mental health sector or care sector, so to say. Yeah. This residency program, the 5th season, it's a special program connecting professional artistic practice with the theme of mental health. Could you briefly introduce the project and share us some of your thoughts about it.
Sure. The fifth season is a residency in a mental health organization, and we started out in 1998 already. So we exist already a long time. And at that time, it was rather unique in the world to have a residency in a care institute. Nowadays, we see that more often. It was at the time that residencies popped up in the world everywhere, but a residency in a mental health institute or in a care institute was really unique. And so over the years, there have been more than hundreds of artists working there together with the patients. And from the beginning on, the goal was to bridge the gap between people who suffer from mental health issues, problems, and society at large.
How did the idea came about? How did it originate? Like this idea in the first place?
Yeah, in the first place. Well, it was at that time that Suzanne Oxena, who is still the chair of the board of the fifth season, was art consultant at the Mental Health Institute. And they wanted to have, let's say, a regular art piece on the grounds of the Mental Health Institute, like an artwork in public space, so to say. But at that time, it didn't go, it went another direction. And there was a house on the terrain of the Mental Health Institute that was abandoned. And the idea popped up, hey, why not have a residency? Why not have more artists coming here to work with the patients? Because Suzanne was looking already for this idea, and also the Mental Health Institute for this idea, how can we make the world more inclusive? How can we help the destigmatization in a way of people who suffer from mental health institute, because at that time it was much more than nowadays. It was a separate group. Let's say you have the people who suffer from mental health issues and problems, and they are in an institute, and there is society. So nowadays, fortunately, it's getting more and more connected.
Right.
But at that time, it was, let's say, the boundaries around the Mental Health Institute was much more than nowadays. So to bridge this gap, that was basically the idea.
Well, beautiful. And then it crossed, the initiative crossed borders.
Right.
And well, we make a huge leap because it's already existing for a long time. But
yes,
in the realm of this NL-Kanto project, you were able to transfer the idea and the concept to Japan, more in particular to this mental health hospital in Fukuroda, in the Kanto region.
Yeah.
How did you get in contact with them?
Yeah, that was also by the help of Dutch culture and by the help of the Dutch embassy. So big thanks for that. And that was again, there were already long-standing relationships between the Netherlands and Japan through Suzanne again in the cultural field. So she did already some cultural projects in Tokyo and elsewhere in Japan. And by that, the idea came up. It came together with the idea, with my idea, to make the fifth season more an international program, as the results in the Netherlands were very fruitful and interesting, both to artists as for the mental health organization and for the patients. So we thought, why not make it broader and enlarge it and look where the program could be fruitful as well. Right.
Which brings me to you, Sachi, because you were the first one to be able to work there. You are a visual artist based in the Netherlands, but coming from Japan. So you have the both experiences from the both perspectives, like Tomoko. You know the nuances in both cultures. Could you tell us first, generally, a little bit about your experience? Because I can imagine you didn't do this before working in a mental health environment. So please share some of your experiences.
First, thank you to invite me and having me here. And I'm an artist based in the Netherlands. And normally I work on the location. So I really focus on the location, like the research location, and interview people, and also it's a lot information from the suits. And then I developed the idea, and for example, I showed the picture here, and here was the 2021 this year. It feels a long time ago, but and in Leiden, I had the opportunity to make an artwork, and I was there sometimes to get the idea. And because of the COVID, sometimes it's blocked my excitement to explore. But I made one work that's very much work. How do you say? Yeah, contribute this community. Let's say.
That's the work that we are looking at.
Yes.
Moment, right.
So it's very complex building around it. It's the former court. The gerecht.
Right.
So I made one installation relate with the windows around these squares. So it's a kind of idea to crystallize. So all elements and then speak out how the character of the space is. So that's how I normally do. So by your invitation, Esther. Together with Nina Glockner, we have been to Fukuroda Hospital.
Okay.
That was such an opportunity suddenly. But based on my artistic practice, go there, get the sled from the location, and then to activate, and then talk with people, then bring some idea of art.
Yeah.
Serve it there. So that was my one here.
So this is the work that you actually realized.
Yeah, one
there.
novel artworks. That's the one patient asked us the question. So what do you do when I don't want to work? So that was a very clear question, but for us that was very difficult to answer. So I. Together with Nina Glockner, we kind of make the one game out of this office table, office desk.
Right.
Normally there's people that the administration, that's a serious business on the desk table. And such an opportunity, we got thousands of the pet bottle caps from the Fukuroda Hospital. So we made a game that's sorting out by throwing the pet bottle caps. And we invited a patient or staff member, medical staff member, doctors, and even director of the hospital. We played out. So we had such a mess and colorful mess in our studio, and then that was the first things we...
It makes me think of the Dutch game Schulen.
Yeah, that's probably the kind of common idea to, how do you say, basic, to focus on the colors and the throwing.
Yep, yeah.
That was the things we realized.
Okay. Could you tell us a little bit more about maybe, that's the hat. That you created.
Yeah, there was one
project.
Yeah, the building, and Nina saw that you can see the facade. So that's exactly the shape of this origami hat.
Right.
So if you make this hat on your hands, it's a little size. But we thought how to multiple bigger and larger.
Right.
And then become this hat to
almost a one-to-one copy of the entrance, right?
So by this, we need lots of hands to hold gigantic paper together. So that's become the one very exciting action.
I invite all the viewers to visit your website, the 5th season website, because there you can see a clip where a lot of people are together folding kind of origami, a large origami project for a community.
Yes.
Which brings me to the question, how do you see the differences or similarities between working in this social environment, interactive with the local inhabitants in the Netherlands and Japan? Are there things you learned from the experience of working in both countries?
I think in Japan, we need massage each other. let's say, because the first impression, and there are some distances between, among others, let's say. So the space, if we condition well, having tea together or talk, and in general stuff, and so by time, we can create such a space. So that's the same as here in the Netherlands too. So like social environment, it's kind of, idea to set the conditions, do it together, then become the place to.
Interesting. As to this word, massaging the environment or the situation. First, you have to.
It's a nice expression. Because,
sink in or something.
Yeah. That's what I recognize from the 5th season as well, because artists work with a group who they don't know beforehand. So and the contacts always came to exist, and they started in a very organic way, like just by making contact, saying hello, or organizing before the let's say the real project, organizing something small to get to know the community, to get to know the people, and to get familiar with each other.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's.
Can I add one more?
Yeah, for sure.
If I say it more specific, it's like acupuncture needle. So like you. Take artists like needle, put in the Fukuroda Hospital. We are kind of getting the flow of the communication, flow of the creativity,
and warming up the body. And that's to a certain extent also entering the body, because a needle needs, and you need to trust the one who's putting the needle inside the body.
Right. Yeah, and I would like to add here that it's very important in our projects that let's say that the people who works with the participating people, that they do this on their own initiative, and that they have really an intrinsic motivation to to participate in the artistic project, because otherwise you have again that the artist pops in the mental health institute and say, hey, hello, we are going to make this project and you all have to be here at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So that doesn't work at all. So it's really necessary to have this, to make this real contact with the patient's group.
Will there be a follow-up? Are you
yes, definitely. I hope
project?
So. Yeah.
Yeah. With the same hospital? Or?
Yeah, with the same hospital. We are in progress, but and in contact with each other. So the first thing that we hope to schedule is while Sachi and Nina will give this spring a presentation of their work and an extension of their work that they made at Fukuroda here in Amsterdam, and we will make together with Fukuroda an online presentation as a part of that. So that's the first thing. And then we're also preparing next residency, but also due to COVID again, it takes time.
Don't mention the word.
That's right.
What happened to the hat?
I don't know.
It's still there?
Yeah.
So
we'll find out.
You can draw a big, gigantic drawing, yes.
Thank you very much. And please stay with us, because we want you back at the table also at the final discussion at the end of the program. But for now, thank you very much, Sachi Miyachi, Esther Vossen. Thank you very much. Which brings me to the next program, part of the program, being a short clip to introduce the next cultural NL-Kanto project, being Vrijhaven, Free Haven. Let's first watch the clip. Okay, thank you. Welcome back. No need to worry about your computer, about the sound, because this clip was meant to have no sound. So no worries about that. Welcome to the table, Vincent Schipper, a multifaceted creative professional. In the past years, you and your colleague Clara van Duikeren, you started the studio The Future. You've been very active with all sorts of initiatives between the Netherlands and Japan. For example, you programmed the Holland House in Saga Prefecture in 2018. Also involved in artist-in-residency programs in Gifu Prefecture, Kyushu. And for this NL-Kanto project, Free Haven, Vrije Haven, due to the travel restrictions, you were not able to visit Japan as much as you wanted to or intended. So we saw a lot of collaborators to the project in the clip. They all seem to be very different and diverse. A lot of names. So maybe up to you. It's up to you to introduce a little bit more about who they are and how you managed to deal with the COVID pandemic and get them all involved, although you were not there yourself.
Yeah. So the question being kind of like, how did it start? Yeah, exactly.
What did you want to achieve?
Yeah, so
basically,
just to be really clear, also from the beginning, so the Vrije Haven project was actually first supposed to be a series of panel discussions, really talking about certain topics or themes that we found important within the creative sector that relate to inclusivity and diversity. Right. As well as a series of exhibitions. There were 4 panel discussions, and there were going to be 4 or 5 different exhibitions, 1 in Amsterdam and 4 in Tokyo. And of course, that didn't happen. But if I'm kind of now reflecting on how this actually all started, it's actually kind of started in 2013. That's kind of when we started with the studio, and it was that because our studio. So Clara and I are both not graduated from the art academies or anything like that, but we're self-taught, and we were very naive, and we thought that, hey, you know, if we are a creative duo, so we can do things, but we were very much confronted by a lot of obstacles, also kind of presented by a lot of institutions. So because we weren't seen as artists or seen as designers in, let's say, the criteria of a lot of institutional kind of frameworks, we were not included. So that's also kind of for us when we started we started asking the question, okay, but then who defines what an artist is? Who defines who is allowed to be a part of the conversation? And if people are then that don't fit within the mold, if they're practices or individuals, if they don't fit, then you know what I mean, like, how can we bring them to the conversation, and how do we listen to them? Or not how do we, but like, how do other people then also listen, and how do we also get involved? So that's kind of how it started, and that's also...
So in a way, it started as you trying to include or get into a world that you thought, I want to be there, part of it as well.
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of like, it started with us thinking that we were part of a world, only to realize that we weren't part of the world. And if we want to be part of this world, we should be able to. And also us realizing there were so many different people within our communities that are not a part of this world. So, and they would be able to contribute so much, and that contribution goes both ways. So that's also kind of what we started with our first artist-in-residency, and that kind of continued and continued until also the Holland House, Yancha, and also with Common Future and Vrije Haven project, is that we constantly said, like, all right, to be able to make this happen, we have to start inviting more people to be part of the conversation. It doesn't matter what kind of context they're coming from, what kind of background they have. If they're contributing in one way or another, we have to involve them in the conversation, and that's.
But it brings up the question: organizing an artist-in-residency, getting people to work together, to collaborate. Yeah. It's not so clear where to start, who to invite.
No,
because if the taught artist is not the criterion, then anyone can become part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's
including yourself as calling yourself or naming yourself an artist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No,
so how did you find people?
So actually what we always do, and that's also kind of how we got involved with all the people that also now part of the Common Future and the Vrijhaven project, is we basically, for all the residencies, for example, we really kind of determine who are people that fit and can contribute to the community the most, who fit with the, not in terms of art practice, but in terms of personality. And because for us, it's not only acupuncture in the sense that like you go in as an artist and then you leave and then let's say the body gets warmer, but it's actually about continuing that process and being really not even just leaving, but you have to embed yourself, and that's also something that we've always been kind of looking for all the participants in our projects, is who are people that are going to keep going back, who are people who are going to adopt that community or that place as also part of their family, you know what I mean? And that's kind of how we started the whole thing. And with Common Future project, Vrijhaven, that's actually kind of a culmination of. Because we were doing this kind of a lot more ad hoc, it's very individual, and also building these networks, especially with the Dutch embassy in Tokyo. It's also one of the things I really want to say is that I don't think any country apart from the Netherlands, and especially the embassy in Tokyo, is so open to kind of create these networks, to connect people, and to make sure that it's more than the sum of the parts. You know, that's also what the core of this is. And for the Vrijhaven project, we want to take the discussion and really kind of make it into a discussion, really involve institutions into it, etc. And that's kind of what wasn't able to happen because of COVID. And that's also why we decided to make it into a website, which we're going to continue to keep growing. We're going to keep commissioning people to write essays and to reflect, and we're going to keep having these kind of really open, ad hoc conversations with people that we see are part of the artistic and the creative communities, right, and having their take on things. Right. So yeah.
So it's a rhizome-like, ever-expanding community network of people coming together, and not per se selected on the basis of whether you're an artist or not, but whether you want to connect and stay connected.
Yeah, and also
for a longer period of time, and then see what comes out of it.
Yeah, exactly, and people that want to collaborate, and that's also kind of.
Could you give an example of one of the connections or the initiatives that comes to mind when thinking about the project?
Specifically for Vrijhaven?
Yeah.
Really quickly. Yeah, the Vrijhaven project is now just kind of, it's really kind of bringing people together. But I think one of the best things, one of the best examples actually is our collaboration with N1 Tokyo.
Okay, that's Kohei Katsura.
Yeah, so Kohei and Satoru and Masa, and it's actually a larger group of people. They have a lot of spaces throughout the Jingumaya area, which is one of the most kind of densely concentrated, let's say, cultural spaces, more on the commercial and more street culture aspects. And the thing is that they're in a very different sector. They have, I think, around 14 different spaces, and they're all very, very fancy. So they rent to Hermes, and they do all these really big exhibitions. But what they also do is that they kind of hedge that work with these much larger brands to be able to also give the exact same types of spaces to people from the communities around them, so from the Harajuku and the Jingumaya let's say communities, but also from Tokyo and also from all of Japan, to kind of give them that same platform. And all of a sudden, that's also kind of one of the topics within Vrijhaven is this question of what is. Yeah, does this kind of a dichotomy between high and low culture actually exist? That's also kind of. That only exists if you allow it to exist. So the moment that you start to create a platform and start to create different ways to kind of break down that difference or that division between high and low culture, and so with N1, that's kind of like we found common ground in that, because they think it's really important to keep giving platforms to young makers I've always had a problem with calling ourselves also artists. A lot of people call us artists, and a lot of people call what we also make as art nowadays. But we just make things that we want to make, and we know a lot of people that also want to do that. So those people get those platforms.
So what I understand about it is, on the one hand, you could say discourse or coming together, even if it's online, might be a work of art.
That also
conversation might be an artwork if you do it explicitly and precise and dedicated.
Yeah, definitely.
The other question would be, especially also with your collaboration with Kohei and the N1 Tokyo, is there a specific product coming out of this collaboration, because they are really adapted to the market, as you said.
Yeah, so for us, let's say a product or a thing that comes out of it is that network, is that trust between people, and that's what's at the core of this. Is that you have to try to remove as much possibility for exploitation, especially especially exploiting certain communities that are now then seen as popular communities, and then they're going to be dumped at a certain point.
But what if I wouldn't call it a product but an artwork? Could you give an example of what the general public would call an artwork coming out of the Vrijhaven project?
Yeah, it's coming out of the Vrijhaven project. I think would just be that compendium or archive of all these different conversations.
But how about books? You publish a lot of books. I can imagine, and the website that are the visible and tangible elements. In the end, for this year at least, what we're going to combine everything into. We're actually releasing everything in zines. Right. So because zines are the most kind of like in how we see it, the most accessible medium for a printed matter that is not then just, let's say, a throwaway sort of pamphlet. Yep. We're going to all combine that into a book. It's going to be 704 pages. It's just this massive thing. I guess that is something that's going to come out of it. But that's a physical manifestation of all these different conversations. And this trust that people are, because all the conversations, even though we're talking about really quite intense topics like what is the relationship between the center and the periphery, or who are outside, who are inside, identity, and how is that constructed, and what are the mechanisms of that, and also what is this kind of invented a relationship between high and low culture within the creative and the cultural sector. Like, even though we're talking about these topics, we're not talking about them directly, but we're talking just as human beings amongst each other. And from that, you can find all these tidbits about how individual people think about it.
Yeah, maybe I could. I recognize part of what you are saying also in our project of the 5th season, because sometimes the outcome itself is not 100% measurable. So what we do, what we bring in a way, what artists bring to the people in the institute who suffer from mental health issues, they. It's hard to measure, but what we see is that people like to contribute, that they like to participate, and that it gives a certain value to them. Also, for example, like in social values, like developing their social skills, but also on talent, and also on the, let's say, the real product of the outcome. So there are like values involved in these kind of projects that are maybe hard to recognize for the general public, but these values are definitely there, and I think that's it's very important when you work with groups to see that as well, and to start recognizing this.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's really, because it's really about that community and building that trust between, and we're also talking about many different types of communities and very different. That's also the whole thing with all the people that we interviewed. Most of them don't know each other.
I'm going to invite them to the table, to the screen, because we already started talking amongst each other. But I'd like to invite Tomoko and Hiroko back to the conversation and maybe share your thoughts about what we were discussing right now. Hiroko, how about this building community maybe being even more important than the tangible outcome of the work? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, thank you. I mean, it's a fascinating topic, of course. Now, especially under the pandemic, and with, dealing with the situation more and more, on a digital platform like this, this, can actually enable us to connect from everywhere. Using this, verbal, linguistic communication, and at the same time, I was just thinking that. It really strips, off ourselves as well, in very unique ways, and whether it be tangible or intangible, there's always some kind of goals that we're always trying to achieve or try, at least attain to. At the same time, the organic, capacity that we are actually creating, in that regard, we are all on page one. No matter where, we are actually coming from, so be it the professional, background, be it, the geographical, the physical backgrounds or anything, we're all actually creating, and incorporating what we have, but the very different, type and facade of ourselves, which is very unique at this point. So in that sense, I think it's quite a unique opportunity that for us to take. At the same time, as that was mentioned, so social values and the different aspects, of course, have to be more respected, or have to be more sensitive, that we can be more sensitive to, in order to participate fairly too, so I'm just sharing my thoughts at the moment, if anyone can pitch in, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Anyone else? Anoma, do you want to respond, or maybe also to other topics that we discussed?
Yeah, so I come from a completely different field, of course, right? So what I can define as an artwork is definitely not going to be what you will all define as an artwork. So just let me bring it back to my perspective as a researcher, or just in my regular work, is that yes, if you are too goal-oriented, you often miss the mark, right? Because if you're too goal-oriented, this means that you have a goal and that is fixed. You're basically moving towards something without recognizing changes in how things are going. So if you talk about how building a community or networking is an artwork, I think about it more pragmatically. You cannot do anything without a proper network. You cannot you cannot put roots in any community without knowing the people in that community. You can bulldoze a community if you want to, and this is what happens a lot, right? This is what a lot of projects have done in the past. You kind of bulldoze into a community and say, this is how we're going to do it, and this is the goal we're trying to achieve. But in the end, you're not achieving much because you're not listening to the people that are actually stakeholders, that are actually invested in making something succeed. So yeah, you would define this as artwork. I would define that as having a basic root in your community upon which you can build something, a good, strong foundation. Otherwise, there's just nothing there.
Right. Thank you. Esther, you want to contribute?
Yeah, I would like to contribute a bit, because for the 5th season projects, I think the core of a residency is that artists go there and make a project, and they investigate and they do research. A main part is researching together with the community. So the outcome, let's say the goal afterwards, having a beautiful art piece that can be showcased and can be in an exhibition, is part one. But the first part and the start of the residency is that artists make a connection with the community, and so that it works both ways. For the 5th season, it is relevant finally to have at the end, it can also be a year later, an art piece, because we want to bring these art pieces also out to the public. So we make shows, and by presenting these particular art pieces, where is a part of the art piece came to existence by the influence of the community with whom the artists have been working with. So that's already the voice of the community is included in the art piece. And by bringing that to general public, I think it's very relevant that the general public also recognizes this voice, what is in the art piece.
But also, I think it's also really important to also kind of note also what was also said previously was also kind of like it's not necessarily only it's about these stakeholders and and bringing, let's say, these roots into these communities. But I think it's also what you're also talking about is kind of what the consequence or the effect of also showing things to a broader public is also to make sure that you connect different stakeholders that usually don't talk to each other together. And I think that's also one of the things that we've been really focusing on, and it's also something that I know that is really important also to a lot of the activities in Japan, of which we're a part of, but also, let's say, also the embassy and whatnot, is to kind of make sure that you broaden these networks outside of just their bubbles, but to really connect more bubbles to each other, so that you can also mutually kind of make them stronger, basically.
Which brings me to you, Tomoko, because you seem to be able to bring people together from the beginning on. You have a very fine feeling how to get all sorts of artists involved in your project. Could you tell a little bit and share your experiences, how you manage to do that, how you select or how you invite all the different kinds of people that are involved in your project?
Well, no, we are talking about this tangible artwork, but music is also not really cannot touch. So I have this background, but you are talking about this community and communication is art. It's very much speaking to me. I understand, because that's how I feel on the stage during the performance. How I get the people together.
Or let me put it differently, maybe.
I can say I don't choose. I think it's everybody is very creative, and everybody is need a little bit of switch to be artist. So I think we are able to make this possibility for everyone to include, actually.
Now, what would you advise people who are watching this event, this program, if they are willing to start a collaboration project with Japanese peers or with Japanese artists? Is there a clue or is there an advice from your side how to start?
I think if the Dutch people are looking for the Japanese artists to work together, it's the same way. Japanese people would be very excited to collaborate with Dutch artists. So this could be the one of the platform, called Dutch culture to ask the good link to make.
And culture all Nippon, of course. Hiroko.
We are also open. Yes.
Right. Sachi, from your point of view, Japanese artists wanting to collaborate with Dutch institutes or colleagues, what would you advise them?
It would be great because lots of things that's still growing, and everyone is also learning by doing. So the potential to become something very exciting, this potential is all the time. And I have experienced so many conversation and meeting with Dutch people, Dutch artists, and then art institutions, and always I can find always new things, and that's we just continue that notion of here and now, and what our topic on the table is. So it's a sharing and then discussion the further way. So that's I would like to continue to do that.
Right. One very last question, one very short answer, please. What's the next? What's next? What's the future bringing for you, Tomoko? And also in relation to the pandemic, what are you able to establish at the moment or to create?
We don't know. I just canceled one thing last week, so hopefully in 2 weeks we will be on stage, but we don't know. We don't hope too strong.
Cross fingers, right, right. How about you, Esther?
Yeah, I hope to provide the good conditions with the 5th season so that artists and the community of the people who suffer from mental health issues can flourish in art projects.
Thank you. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
How about you, Sachi? What's next? And how to deal with the pandemic?
Eat well. That's only one. But yeah,
eat well.
I would like to how to say, not only focus on this expert, but also I'm also getting to speak with families, and
great.
And that's also a very important moment to grow your territory and together with your lovers and people. That's,
great.
Things I would like to add.
Beautiful, thank you, thank you. How about you, Vincent? Eat well, massage, have acupuncture.
Yeah, all of those things I think is good, and I think for us it's just to continue and to keep connecting more people together and to initiate more collaborations and to link up more of those networks with each other, and also to make cool things together.
Great, thank you. Last word for you, Anoma. I would give you the opportunity to wrap up a little bit and to give us a final message from your point of view, please. Floor is yours.
Oh wow! Oh wow! That's a big responsibility. Thank you, everyone, so much. Let me start off with what I want to do in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months. Now that the borders are closed and the Netherlands is closed off from Japan, the thing I want to focus on as a correspondent for the NOS is bringing Japan a little closer to home. I do find it very painful that my Dutch friends and family are not able to come here and share in this discourse that we're having today. So I hope that it opens really quick. And let me finish it off and conclude by saying that I've been inspired by all of you. I really look forward to actually visiting your projects because you've gotten me very interested. And I will likely just, say hi to everyone. But please do not be let down by Corona. Please don't be let down by COVID-19. Art transcends everything. It is human, and COVID-19 is not. So thank you so much, everyone, for today. And thank you, Jan, for moderating so greatly. It was an amazing session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all once again. Esther, Sachi, Hiroko, Tomoko, Vincent, Anoma, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you all for watching us. I hope you'll have a grasp and get inspired by the cultural exchange and collaborations currently between the Netherlands and Japan, especially around this most important and inspiring theme being inclusivity. Please check the website of NL-Kanto Cultural Program, nlkanto.com. I repeat, nlkanto.com. And there you'll find more also about all the other projects. If you have any question or need for advice in your work towards Japan, please feel free to contact Dutch Culture, namely the advisor for Japan, Ian Young. And at the end, I would once again like to thank you all for joining, for participating, all for watching. Arigato gozaimashita. Have a good evening for you in Japan. Have a good afternoon in the Netherlands, or this evening, of course, also. And stay healthy, stay well. Hope to see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.